This is not a story. This is a real event.
Tonight's story is inspired by real events. Some names, locations, and details have been changed for privacy. November 14, 2021, 3:17 a.m., a small town in Ohio. 34-year-old Emily Harris was working the night shift as a 911 dispatcher. It had been an unusually quiet night. For nearly an hour, not a single emergency call had come in. Emily reached for her coffee, then the phone rang. The screen displayed only 4 words, incoming 911 call. She immediately answered, 911, what's your emergency? Silence. For a few seconds, the only sound was soft, shaky breathing. Then, a little girl's voice, barely above a whisper.
Please, don't let him find me.
Emily sat up straight. Her voice remained calm.
Sweetheart, what's your name?
The little girl whispered, Lily. Lily, how old are you? I'm 8. Emily instantly began tracing the call. Within seconds, an address appeared on her screen. 148 Willow Creek Road. Emily spoke gently. Lily, can you tell me what's happening? The girl's breathing became faster. Then she whispered,
There's a man inside our house. He's looking for me.
Without wasting another second, Emily dispatched officers to the location. Then she said, listen to me, Lily. Stay where you are. The police are on their way. Then Lily quietly replied, no, they won't find me in time. At that exact moment, Emily heard something through the phone, heavy footsteps. Slowly climbing the stairs. Lily's breathing became frantic. She whispered, he's coming upstairs. Then, the sound of a door slowly creaking open. Emily's heart pounded. Lily, stay with me. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Then, a man's voice, low, calm, and terrifying. I found you. The call disconnected. The room fell silent. Emily stared at the screen, trying to process what had just happened. 2 minutes later, her police radio came to life. An officer spoke with a trembling voice. Dispatch, we've got a problem. Emily grabbed the radio. Go ahead. Then the officer said, the house at 148 Willow Creek Road has been abandoned for over 12 years.
Emily froze. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. An abandoned house. Then, who had called 911? She grabbed the radio. Officer Daniels, confirmed that location. The officer answered immediately. We're standing right in front of 148 Willow Creek Road. The windows are boarded up. The front door is chained shut. Nobody has lived here in over a decade. Emily looked back at her computer. The call was still on the screen, the timer showed. For minutes and 38 seconds. There was no error, no system malfunction. The call had come from that address. Just then, another officer's voice broke over the radio. Dispatch. Wait a second. Emily held her breath. What is it? The officer spoke more quietly this time. There's a light inside the house. Every officer looked toward the second floor. A single window, at the end of the hallway, was glowing with a faint yellow light. 1 second later, it went dark. Officer Daniels slowly approached the front porch. He shined his flashlight through a broken window. Dust covered everything, old furniture, rotting walls. Spider webs hanging from the ceiling. No signs of anyone living there. Then, his flashlight stopped. A small pink teddy bear was sitting in the middle of the hallway. Perfectly clean, as if someone had placed it there only minutes ago. Daniels whispered, Dispatch. Someone's been inside this house. Before Emily could answer, the radio filled with loud static. Then, a little girl's voice. The same voice.
He's still here.
Every officer heard it. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The voice came again. Softer this time.
Please, don't leave me alone.
Then the radio went completely silent. Officer Daniels looked at his partner. Neither of them wanted to go inside, but they had no choice. He slowly reached for the front door, and the rusty chain fell to the ground by itself. The door slowly creaked open into complete darkness. The front door slowly creaked open. A wave of freezing air rushed out of the house.
Officer Daniels tightened his grip on his flashlight. Slowly, he stepped inside. 2 officers followed close behind. The house was completely silent. The only sound was the echo of their boots against the old wooden floor. The air smelled of mold, rotting wood, and years of decay. The wallpaper was peeling from the walls. Spider webs hung from the ceiling. Everything looked untouched for years. Then, Daniel's flashlight stopped. The pink teddy bear, still sitting in the middle of the hallway. It looked brand new, spotless, as if someone had placed it there only moments ago. Daniel slowly picked it up. It felt warm. His heart skipped a beat. Before anyone could say a word, a loud noise echoed from upstairs. Then another. It sounded like someone was slowly walking across the second floor. The 3 officers exchanged nervous glances. Daniels, someone's up there. With their weapons raised, they slowly climbed the staircase. 1 step, then another. Halfway up, a little girl's laughter echoed through the house. Soft, but unmistakable. Then, silence. The officers froze. Every instinct told them to leave, but they kept moving. At the end of the upstairs hallway, 1 door stood slightly open. A faint yellow light spilled into the hallway. Daniel slowly pushed the door open. The room was empty. No furniture, no curtains, nothing, except an old wooden chair, and sitting on top of it, a dusty landline telephone. It was ringing. Daniel stared at it. There shouldn't have been any electricity. The house had been abandoned for 12 years. Yet, the phone kept ringing. He slowly picked up the receiver. A little girl's voice answered. Soft, fragile, almost.
You're too late.
Lily, where are you?
I'm standing right behind you.
Daniel slowly turned around. The room was empty. No one was there. Then, the bedroom door slammed shut. The lights went out. Complete darkness. For a few seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Then, deep within the darkness, a pair of tiny glowing eyes slowly opened. The glowing eyes slowly disappeared into the darkness. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Officer Daniels gripped his flashlight with trembling hands. Then, the lights suddenly came back on. The room was empty. The glowing eyes were gone. Only the old telephone remained, swinging gently, as if someone had just hung up the receiver. Daniels took a deep breath. We're leaving. Before anyone could move, a loud crash echoed through the house. It came from downstairs. The officers rushed back into the hallway. As they reached the staircase, they froze. The pink teddy bear was no longer downstairs. It was, now sitting, at the top of the stairs, facing them. None of the officers had touched it. Slowly, Daniels bent down and picked it up again. This time, something fell from inside the teddy bear. A small, folded piece of paper. Yellow, with age. He carefully unfolded it. Written in a child's handwriting were just 7 words. He's hiding beneath the house. Don't trust him. The officers looked at one another. Beneath the house. Before anyone could speak, they heard another sound. A child crying. Very softly. It was coming from below, from underneath the floor. Daniel swept his flashlight across the hallway. Near the end of the corridor, he noticed an old wooden hatch, half hidden beneath a torn rug. He slowly pulled the rug aside. The hatch was slightly open. A freezing wind drifted out, along with the smell of wet earth. Daniels looked at the other officers. No matter what happens, stay together. He pulled the hatch open. A narrow staircase disappeared into complete darkness. As they started walking down, the hatch above them, slowly, closed by itself. Every step on the old wooden staircase echoed through the darkness. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Officer Daniels led the way. The other 2 officers stayed close behind. When they reached the bottom, they stopped. The basement was small. The walls were damp. The air smelled of mold and wet earth. Scattered across the floor were old children's toys, a broken doll, a tiny bicycle, and in the corner, an old wooden rocking chair. It was moving, slowly, back and forth.
There wasn't a single breath of wind, yet the chair never stopped rocking. One of the officers suddenly, "Sir, look at the wall." Daniels raised his flashlight. The beam revealed dozens of tiny handprints, children's handprints, covering the wall. But something was horribly wrong. Every single handprint looked as if it had been pressed from inside the wall, as though someone had been desperately trying to claw their way out. Daniels felt a chill run through his body. Then he noticed an old wooden cabinet. Its door was slightly open. He slowly pulled it open. Inside lay the tiny skeleton of a little girl. Her small arms were wrapped tightly around a pink teddy bear. For several seconds, no one spoke. No one moved. Then, the police radio burst into static. A familiar voice came through. Lily, soft, calm, almost relieved.
You found me.
Daniels swallowed hard. Lily, what happened to you? There was a long silence. Then she whispered.
He locked us down here.
None of us ever got out.
Suddenly, the entire basement shook. Something massive was slamming against the walls. The flashlights flickered. Once, twice. Then, every light went out. Complete darkness. The officers held their breath. Then, they heard it. Heavy breathing. Right behind them. Close enough to feel it on the backs of their necks. The officers didn't move. No one dared to breathe. The heavy breathing behind them slowly became louder. Officer Daniels tightened his grip on his flashlight. With one quick motion, he switched it back on. The beam cut through the darkness. Nothing. The basement was empty. The breathing had stopped. One of the officers nervously laughed. Maybe we imagined it. Before anyone could answer, the old rocking chair suddenly stopped moving. Complete silence. Then, a deep voice echoed through the basement.
You should have left.
The officers spun around. No one was there. The voice came again, closer this time.
Now, you're trapped too.
Suddenly, the basement door upstairs slammed shut. The sound echoed through the entire house. Officer Daniels rushed toward the staircase. He tried to open the basement door. It wouldn't move. He kicked it. Again and again. Nothing. It was as if something on the other side was holding it closed. Then, one officer screamed. Daniels! He turned around. The pink teddy bear was sitting in the middle of the basement floor. But this time, it wasn't alone. Standing behind it was a tall man, almost 7 feet tall. His face was hidden in the darkness. Only his pale hands were visible. Long, thin, and stained with blood. He slowly tilted his head. Then, he smiled. A smile no human should ever have. Without warning, the lights exploded. Glass shattered across the floor. The basement plunged into darkness once again. One officer's scream echoed through the house. It ended, almost instantly. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. The basement fell completely silent. Officer Daniels stood frozen. His flashlight was gone. One of his partners had disappeared. Only the sound of dripping water echoed through the darkness. Daniels reached for his radio. Dispatch, officer down. Only static answered. Then, Emily's voice came through, broken.
Daniels, get out of there, right now.
Before he could reply, a little girl's voice whispered beside his ear.
It's too late.
Daniels spun around. No one. Then, the tall man stepped out of the darkness. For the first time, his face became visible. His skin was pale. His eyes were completely black. His mouth stretched into an unnatural smile. Daniels raised his weapon. Don't move. The man didn't stop. He took one slow step forward, then another. Without thinking, Daniels fired. The bullet passed straight through him, as if he wasn't even there. The figure smiled, then pointed toward the far wall. Suddenly, the wall cracked open. Hidden behind it was a small underground room. Inside were old police files, newspaper clippings, and dozens of photographs. Every photo showed the same house, the same basement, the same missing children. Daniels picked up the oldest newspaper. The headline read,
Local man arrested after children disappear. The article explained that decades ago, a man named Richard Hale had kidnapped several children and kept them hidden beneath his house. Before police could rescue them, Richard set the house on fire. His body was never found, neither were the children. Daniels slowly looked back at the tall man. His uniform camera suddenly turned on by itself. The figure was gone. Only the pink teddy bear remained. Then, Lily's voice whispered one last time.
He never left.
At that exact moment, the basement began to shake violently. The walls cracked. The ceiling started collapsing. Daniels realized he had only seconds to escape. The entire basement shook violently. Chunks of the walls began to collapse. Dust filled the air. Officer Daniels ran as fast as he could toward the basement stairs. Behind him, he could hear slow footsteps. Someone, or something, was following him. But he never looked back. He reached the basement door. With every ounce of strength he had, he slammed his shoulder into it. Once, twice. On the third hit, the door burst open. Daniels stumbled outside the house. The moment he reached the front yard, a deafening crash echoed from inside. Then, everything went silent. Minutes later, additional police units arrived at the scene. They searched the entire property. Deep beneath the house, they discovered the hidden room. Inside, they found human remains, old police reports, newspaper clippings, and evidence linking Richard Hale to the disappearance of several children decades earlier. The town was shocked. After all those years, the missing children's case had finally been solved. But one question remained unanswered. Who had made the 911 call that night? Investigators later confirmed something impossible. The little girl, Lily, had died 12 years earlier. The house had no active phone line, no electricity, no service. Yet somehow, a 911 call had been placed from inside that abandoned house. A few days later, Officer Daniels resigned from the police department. He never spoke publicly about what happened that night. But in his personal journal, investigators found one final sentence. Some calls don't come from the living. Emily continued working as a 911 dispatcher, but every year, on November 14th, at exactly 3:17 a.m., she quietly watches her computer screen, because once every year, the phone rings. There is no phone number, no caller ID. Only 4 words appear on the screen. Incoming 911 call. Emily always answers, but no one speaks. Only the soft whisper of a little girl.
Thank you.
Then, the line goes dead. To this day, the old house still stands on Willow Creek Road. Locals avoid driving past it after midnight, because they believe, if you ever hear a phone ringing from inside that abandoned house, don't answer it. The voice waiting on the other end may have died many years ago.